Hello and welcome to Northwest Knitting. My name is Kathy and I am in the Willamette Valley of Oregon, and this is my knitting podcast where I talk about my knitting practice and the clothes that I'm making in my efforts to have a more sustainable wardrobe. Welcome. You are all welcome here, and if you've been here before, and a special welcome to you. And I really love hearing from you when you comment. And if you're new, welcome, and I hope you enjoy it. So as you can see, I am outside, which I've never done before, and we might have some noise, but I'm going to give it a try and see if I can remember to press the pause button instead of the stop button, which isn't going so far, but we'll give it another go. We are getting close to the end of the time that we could be outside. It's actually a fairly warm day, so I'm going to be taking off this top sweater fairly soon. But I wanted to show it to you because a viewer of mine asked me to give a little more information on how I came to be more interested in sustainable yarns. And in fact, she had a great book recommendation for me that I'm going to follow up on. And I gave her some links, and I'll put them in the show notes below. I think I might have problems with the dog, but anyway, I thought that one of the thoughts I had was that you don't really come to decisions about a lot of things purely intellectually. I think things come from the heart or from experience. And so I wanted to talk about these two sweaters because they had a lot to do with moving me in a direction of more rustic yarns and lightly processed fibers. So the first one I want to talk about is this cardigan was my very first sweater for myself. It's the Barn Sweater by Carrie, Bostick, Hoge, I think, H-O-G. And the yarn is Stonehedge fiber mill shepherd's wool worsted, and it's 100% merino. So I really like the pattern a lot. It's a stockinette, a garter stitch on the collar and the button band and the edgings, and I just really love this pattern. It worked out great. It fit perfectly. I did a gauge swatch, carried it around in my purse for a while. I really did feel ecstatic to make a sweater for myself that fit, and it really did set me off on this journey to make clothes for myself. It was shortly after that I stopped buying ready-made sweaters, so I don't think I've purchased a sweater since I made this in 2018. However, in a lot of ways, this was a failure because the yarn pilled so badly. So I had used this yarn a lot for accessories, and I really liked it, probably more for scarves. I was really into scarves for a while there. But, and I did have gauge, but I might have done better if I had knit this at a tighter gauge and maybe adjusted the size, but it really does feel like it's at the gauge it should be, but it is just too pilly for me. And I can't tell how it looks on camera right now, but I think it might not look too bad, but it really does have a lot of pilling. And I'm going to take it off and show you the inside, because that's what it it often can look like, you know. So, whoop, I'm revealing my first sweater sleeves, I think. Anyway, it feels just, most of the time for me, it just feels just a little worn and not nice for taking to being out, and I tend to wear it more as a bathrobe, which was certainly not my intention. So anyway, the lesson from that for me was that maybe softness isn't everything. I had also had a previous experience where I made a vest for myself, and that yarn was so soft, because that's what I was drawn to, that it looked like a rag before I finished knitting it. It was so sad. I even put the buttons on it, it fit, and I ended up taking the buttons off and donating the sweater without the buttons, because I just didn't want to give up those buttons. That wasn't very nice of me, but I can't imagine who's going to wear that. Another thing you can do is, let's see, you can knit a tighter gauge. I think that when yarn is very pilly, it might do better in a texture. It's going to show more, pilling's going to show more with stockinette, but if you did a moss stitch or some other texture, you might have a better result. But anyway, for me, it was pretty disappointing. Actually, I made a hat as well, and that also, things really just smushed together, so it had lace, and you can't see the lace. And so, a really lovely yarn, a joy to work with, but for a sweater, for me, it was just too soft. So, that brings me to this sweater. Now, I love the sweater, and I wear it a lot during the winter. This sweater is called Moxie Pullover, and it's by Amy Christophers, who you might remember from the Felix Pullover, the Felix cardigan, the Lunenburg sweater, and the Pressed Flowers shawl. Those are the ones that are really her extra special patterns that I've made all of. No, I haven't made the Pressed Flowers. I'll tell you about that later. Anyway, this the special thing about this was also a worsted weight sweater, and the special thing is the ribbing right here. So this yarn maybe wouldn't show this as much as some other yarns might. The yarn has a lot going on. The yarn is Malabrigo Washted, and it's in the Cowboy colorway. And it is a superwash merino. Now, the thing about this sweater is, well, Malabrigo. The colors, stunning. I could go into a yarn store and just look at a wall of Malabrigo, and it just makes my heart sing. It's just so pretty, and the colors are so vibrant. However, I swatched again like a good girl for this one, and that one I carried around in my purse, and I was pretty paranoid about pilling by the, after doing my barn sweater. So it doesn't really pill. To me, it gets a fuzz, and I just can't, I don't think you can see it from here, but when I look down, I definitely see a fuzz. It's a beautiful, it's just a beautiful, beautiful colorway. And as soon as I saw it, I was doomed. I was going to have it. But the thing is that this yarn really stretched a lot for me, and I ended up having to pick up stitches, and I did a little crochet around here, I think. I need to go back and redo that. I did it when I made shortly after making the sweater, which I did in February of 2019, but I really should go back. Well, make sure I can find the yarn. I do have a tiny bit of this yarn left, and go back and redo the edging because it's a little tight. So I can do better now. But I was very happy with this sweater. If you're looking for a basic sweater, this is really great. In this position, I can't really show, can't stand up, but very well here you can see a little bit. You could see that I did a little split hem, and it's really loose and stretchy, which is great in a way, but I think it stretched almost at least 1.5 to 2 inches. So even though I'm basically okay with it, and I was able to fix this, I was really not prepared for it to stretch so much. So again, this one, not a failure by any means. The yarn is, of course, really enjoyable to knit with. And I do wear it, but I have a couple observations about it, and that has affected what I've done going forward. One thing is that I am very aware that this is not as warm. I mean, for a worsted weight sweater, it is not as warm as one that would be, as a more lightly processed yarn. So the superwash takes off, they use the chemicals to take off the prickles, and then they put a plastic coating on it. And what that does is it eliminates some of the things that we really love about wool, one of which is, of course, that it's so warm. So, and also I am aware by feeling that this has been altered. So anyway, as I was preparing, and I went on to use the Malabrigo Washted for my Soldotna sweater, which I talk about in an earlier episode, and that one was a fully superwash sweater as well, and that one to me really feels heavier, maybe because it has the stranded work, but anyway, that's the other thing. They are definitely heavier. So anyway, when I was getting ready for this and talking about it, I thought, boy, I should really check out and see if Malabrigo talks about this on their website, because I've become more and more aware of superwash yarns that are processed in a more environmentally friendly way. So not all superwash is equal, really. So it turns out that there's a blog post, and the way it was written, it came out in August of this year, and it looked like it was a brand new policy, but I went back and did even more research, and it looks like this isn't a brand new policy, but it was published again. So I'm going to just read and paraphrase for you what it says. It says, our superwash process is now using Ecotex standards, and that's OEKO-tex, TEX, standards, and free of harmful substances often found in manufacturing, parentheses, formaldehydes, pesticides, heavy metals, and other toxins such as carcinogens. Our superwash process uses very thin, very diluted coating of resin, the same as used in facial tissue and kitchen paper. And I think they mean paper towels, probably. So this is really a good statement in a way. And I also heard elsewhere, although there's really hardly any information about it, and and I am surprised that if a company is doing environmentally friendly processing, I'm surprised they don't indicate it more on the labels. But again, I haven't looked at that label in a long time. I'm pausing just for a minute. We'll see if my neighbor's dog cooperates here. Anyway, I looked up Ecotex, and it sounds like Ecotex tests for harmful substances and requires products to be manufactured under sustainable and socially responsible conditions. So it sounds like the GOTS standard. Yeah, I don't know, and I need to find out more information, but that is an interesting statement by Malabrigo. It maybe makes us feel a little better. I have to say that my first reaction is like, ooh, I knew those substances are found in manufacturing, but ooh. Anyway, the other thing is that I'm reading this, and instead of thinking, oh, this is so good of Malabrigo, I'm thinking, facial tissue, resin and facial tissue. So, anyway, so I think these, aside from knitting sweaters for children, I think this is the last, maybe not the very last sweater I made that was superwash, but I think it's might be. So anyway, why I'm saying all this is that usually when you come to decisions about things, or you start moving in a direction, it's often just experiences, and it wasn't like I just read. I mean, if you can read very good reasons to not use any plastic, to not use any fossil fuels for garments. We use them for so many other things that are more critical, but I really don't think we make decisions that way. I think having the experience that there's some ways it doesn't work, or you can develop your preferences in a different direction. And I think for me, it's happened kind of gradually, and as I learn more. So, and I'm still learning. I am far from finishing this exploration, really. So anyway, I just wanted to have that as one of the things I mentioned, and also because I haven't shown you these sweaters before, and this is a very fun pattern. So was the other one. I do like it a lot. So let me tell you, I do have some whips. So you've seen this before. I am moving along on my Cape, I believe it's Cape Lookout. My Cape Lookout shawl from Salt and Timber. And I've really been enjoying it, but I ran into a big problem that had nothing to do with the pattern. Yeah, Cape Lookout shawl. And so here's the one in the book. And here's a more detailed picture of the lace there. So anyway, here's my problem. What happened is when I copied the chart and the instructions from the book, because I don't like to work out of the book. I like to keep that kind of pristine, and then I copy it and I write all over it, and sometimes. And the chart gets all ratty and, and worn, and I'm taping. So what I do is I tape the line I tape right above the line I'm working on and keep going up, and that way I can see the pattern below. So that works pretty well. But what happened is when I printed the chart, I did not do it in color I was being frugal, and I did it in black and white. And the block that often on charts they will block out the part that's the pattern repeat, and I couldn't see the pattern repeat. So I'm using the chart. She also has written instructions for the lace, and I was just having a heck of a time. I could not figure it out. So I found a really nice knitting YouTube, and it was the it's by Arnold Culliford Techniques, so ACT. Now I can't remember the woman's name, but you might have seen her. She's been interviewed on Fruity Knitting, and she has very, very good instructional videos. And this one was called Something New to Learn About Lace Using Stitch Markers. So I actually had Googled the stitch markers and lace charts, because what I thought the problem was that what I really wanted to do was I want to put markers around the pattern repeat, and I was having trouble identifying the pattern repeat. Well, the minute she pulled up a chart and showed the blocked out part for the pattern repeat, I just went boing. So I went, looked at the book, and sure enough, I hadn't seen it. It was pretty fine on the chart, in the book, and so I printed it in color, and then I went around it with a red marker so I wouldn't lose it. So as long as you can use your markers to keep track of a pattern repeat, as long as you have an equal number of decreases and increases within that repeat. But in the instructional video, she shows you how to deal with the situation where there's maybe a knit 3 together, and it goes beyond that, beyond the markers. So that was really useful to learn. So overall, I did learn something, but I wasted a lot of time last week, because right now I'm at the part of the shawl where I am in the long part. So I was having to rip out at this long part. So here's my shawl, and I don't know, it's harder to see. Let me do this. I'll show you the lace up here. So I think you can see it better here. Anyway, I'm really enjoying it. The yarn I'm using is Jaggerspun Heather, which is it feels like a light fingering to me, but maybe fingering. And then I'm holding it with this one additional strand of Kidsilk, Rowan Kidsilk Haze. And so here's the Jaggerspun. I believe it's in Wisteria color. And oops, I've shown this before, but I know everybody likes to look at the yarn. So here's the yarn, and it is in the Dewberry color. So isn't that pretty? Actually, it would go okay with this. So I'm really moving along, and I'm like 2/3 through the lace, and I will finish that, and then there's quite a long rib, and once I do that, it'll be smooth sailing. So hopefully I'll have that next time, and I think this will require a nice firm blocking because of the lace. So anyway, that's that. And then the other one I'm doing is the Set Adrift shawl, also from Salt and Timber. And this is what I've done so far. So the unusual thing about this shawl is it's knit sideways. So it starts down here, and then you keep knitting these sections, and these are slip stitches. So it's really fun. I think I have two more of these sections to go this way, and then I start decreasing, and then there'll be an equal number in the other direction. So this will really look great with my Lento sweater that I did in something a little darker than this. Anyway, this is really fun. It's just, this is very easy. There's nothing tricky about it. And the yarns I'm using are the, this one is Rowan Felted Tweed, and it's in the Fjord colorway, but this I bought ages ago. This one I bought recently, and I didn't have this one with me. But as you can see, they do not match. But my strategy is that the next time I do one of the turquoise sections, I will switch to this color, and I'll use the different colors for full sections. So it might even look like it's on purpose, I think. So, and the other yarn I'm using is the Manos del Uruguay Milo, and it's a combination of wool and linen. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. I really enjoy it. It's just a joy to work with. So the Rowan Felted Tweed, this is really a favorite of mine, and I know I'm not the only person. It's pretty soft. You can definitely, for me, it's absolutely next to skin. And this one is 50% wool, 25% alpaca, and 25% viscose. Now I'm going to put a link below to a column in Modern Daily Knitting that talks about Rowan Felted Tweed. They've used it a lot. They're real fans of it, and they've used it for blankets and some projects by Kay Fassett, who did one of their, who was the designer on one of their books. This is a real fun yarn, and there's a whole piece about the yarn, which is kind of unusual. What they do is they lightly felt the wool, and I don't know how it works, if it's like mixed, if they felt it before they mix it. They must, I guess. And I think one of the things that makes it, so the felted part really makes it nice, and then it's got that alpaca, and it has the viscose, which really I think makes it feel, it's not just so much a softness, but almost a, well, it's a drapiness. So viscose isn't always the best thing. There's nothing inherently, there's nothing toxic or polluting about the cellulose. So it's rayon, basically. Viscose is rayon. But the process can involve a lot of harmful chemicals. You know, I've had so much rayon in ready-made clothes over the last maybe 20 or 30 years, and I've really liked it a lot. And of course didn't know anything about how it was made. Now I did go on the Rowan website though, and Rowan says that they require their suppliers and manufacturers to ban environmentally harmful substances, and they talk about how being environmentally friendly is very important to them. So that's their statement. And I do have a bunch more felted tweed that I'm going to use. And I'm hoping just to find out more. I wish that companies were just a little bit, maybe a little bit more information on what they're doing, but it is somewhat reassuring to have that information. So I will be hoping over time to get more information, but I do feel that in this day, in these days, if something is made in a sustainable way, I think most companies are really trumpeting that from the rooftops. So anyway, love the yarn, love the project. So I'm having a really good time with that. Okay, so what I was gonna talk about is a couple things have come my way. One is I've been seeing, now what the heck is this? Oh, my chart. Okay, I've been seeing the Sophie scarf by Petite Knit, and I've been thinking about casting it on. And then I ended up seeing another scarf. So do you remember I did a baby sweater called the Sorgenfrei fold over jacket? I did it for a little baby a number of episodes back, and I really liked the pattern very much for a number of reasons. And here is a scarf that is made with that same ribbing interspersed with purling stitch. Now this is designed, it's called the Sorgenfrei scarf, and it's designed by Indy Blomst, who designed the sweater. And at the time I bought the sweater pattern, she was not on Ravelry. I had fallen in love with it by seeing it on Instagram. So I follow her on Instagram, but it turns out she's now made an adult sweater and this scarf and a child-size sweater all out of this same interesting texture. So if you signed up for her email, you could get this pattern free. And she says 3 to 4 millimeter needle, which I think wouldn't that take me like between 4 and 6 inch? I was size 4 or 6. I'm not sure. I think so. And it's 21 stitches for 10 centimeters or 4 inches. And she used some yarn I'm not familiar with. It looks like Como La Mana and a cashmere yarn called Lang, 50 grams of each. So actually I have some ultra alpaca that's half wool, half alpaca. And I think this has the same gauge as her sweater, adult sweater. So I was thinking I could make this and it could be my gauge possibly if I decide to make the sweater. So I think I'm gonna give that a go. The other thing that I got very excited about this week is, if I can find it, okay, is Amy Christophers, who designed this sweater, and Felix and so forth, has come out with a new sweater that uses the same motif as her pressed flowers shawl. So she has this pressed flowers cardigan, and I love that it's V-neck. I used to never wear. I never wore a crew neck. I always wore V-necks. I really like them. And I've always wanted to make the pressed flowers shawl. So what I'm thinking is, oh, and here she is wearing it. So what I'm thinking is, I'm thinking of making it where the background color is a very dark color, maybe either like a dark gray, possibly a dark blue, and then I have some Feederbrook Entropy that I would love to use up, and actually it's right here. I'll go get it. So this Feederbrook Entropy Decay is kind of a less expensive version of Spin Cycle. It's 100%, well, I don't know the makeup of the Spin Cycle, but I know those amazing colors. But here, this is how it is. And here's my other one, which actually I've had trouble. I started doing the night shift shawl with this, and this, it's so light around the edges that I was having a hard time getting it to show up. And then I found this in my local yarn store, and I thought, well, with some more of this darker, brighter blue, that I should be able to use up this. So the Entropy Decay is 100% blue-faced Leicester wool, and this colorway is Event Horizon, and you get 260 yards of it. And I can't remember the cost, but it was way more, I thought it was way more affordable than Spin Cycle. Not that I don't love Spin Cycle, but it is expensive. So I have thought about doing this with this, like a very dark gray, and having this be the flowers that come out here. See that? So kind of doing the reverse of what she's done here. But if you go on the if you look at pressed flowers on Instagram or Ravelry, you can see many, many, many different versions of of how they've done the colorways. And that's been really fun. So I actually, as you can see, I actually bought the pattern already. And she calls for sport weight yarn, but interestingly, on the design page, she suggests that if you are using a superwash yarn, you use DK or worsted weight, and if you're doing a woolen spun or can't remember if she said woolen spun or something woolier, that you do a lighter weight yarn, like sport or fingering. Now, this is DK, but, so I don't know, this might not work for me, but it's definitely woolly. It's not superwash. So we'll see. And I have some dark sport weight, and I don't know if I could use these together. So I have a little swatching to do to see if I can swing it, or the other thing is I certainly have plenty of yarn. I could go in a different direction entirely and just use two solid colors, and I am sure it would be absolutely gorgeous. So anyway, that is what I am thinking of right now. I've been having so much fun. There's so many beautiful patterns out right now. It's just, and I have a huge collection of patterns in my on my favorites page that I could have a lot of fun with. So, and then there's baby clothes. So there's plenty to do, and the hardest part is just deciding what it is you're going to do, at least for me. So one thing that has been on my mind, I'm so aware of all the people going to the big knitting festivals, particularly Rhinebeck, but also I heard that Mega of Skeins of Dreams, and Selma of Big Little Knits, and Mel of Mel Makes Stuff all went together to the Vermont Wool Festival recently, and I just felt so jealous. I really would love to have I'd love to go to a bigger fiber festival and meet some more people who are interested in wool yarns and designs and everything. So there is actually a smaller festival. It's called Oregon Flock and Fiber, and it's in Albany, Oregon, which is the same place where Black Sheep Gathering was earlier this year. And so I am planning to go. It's next weekend. So far I haven't I haven't heard if any of my knitting friends can go, but I know that if I go by myself, I will find people to talk to. And actually, when I went to Black Sheep, I was just getting over COVID. I still wasn't, I had tested negative, but I was still not totally, I was still kind of dragging and everything. And I remember being in there and all of a sudden going, oh, I think I've stayed here too long. So anyway, it'll be really fun. I'm healthy, very healthy right now, and I would love going to that fiber festival, so I will give it a go. Otherwise, what else do I have to share with you? I'm going to blame part of my problem with the shawl to the fact that I was binge watching Seaside Hotel, and it is a Danish television show with subtitles, and so I can watch subtitles if I'm working on something simple, but I think lace work maybe is not a good idea. So I was watching a bunch of that. I really enjoy it. It's a very charming television show. I think I watch it on Amazon PBS. I get my PBS through Amazon, so I think I was watching it on PBS. The other thing we've watched, okay, is the dog doing a one bark? Maybe not. Okay. We've also been watching Rings of Power, and I won't say I'm an absolute maniac over the Tolkien, but I did read Lord of the Rings when I was in my 20s, and I've seen the movies, and now there's a new TV show that we've been following. It's kind of a prequel to what happens in Lord of the Rings. So that's been kind of fun, and when it gets violent, I just put my head down and knit until the violence is over, and then I come back. The other thing I've read is the thing I've read most recently is The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. And this is a book about a real person in history named Belle, I think it's Belle da Costa Green. And she was the personal librarian for J.P. Morgan. And she was a fascinating person who helped him helped him acquire his rare book collection. And she was incredible. It starts in 1905, and it was really amazing for a woman at that point to have so much responsibility. He sent her to Europe, to bid on, to go to auctions and bid on things for him. So she was just fantastic. I mean, amazing for a woman of her time. But the other thing was unknown to anyone. She was African American and was passing as white and having that big secret of, with the fear of always knowing that she could be outed. And she was supporting her family at the time, so this was not insignificant. This was a real burden, as well as a joy to her, because she loved what she was doing. She had a life and was in a world that she would never have had access to, and it's really amazing that even as a woman that she had that experience, but as an African American it was unheard of. So anyway, I really enjoyed it. I mean, just knowing about that time period, and apparently there's quite a lot of information about her, that she wrote her own autobiography, and others have written her biographies, and there were some letters that were found. So there's actually quite a bit to work with, although not all is known of her. So anyway, I really did enjoy that quite a bit, and I think many people have some things they'd rather not be about themselves, or their histories that they'd rather not be trumpeted to the from the rooftops. So everybody has a little something that makes it possible for them to relate to what Belle was going through. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. So other than that, I'm really enjoying the change in the weather. We're starting to tear out our vegetable garden and put things to bed, and I just love waking up and having to put a sweater on. So I don't know, maybe you're with me on that one. So I think that's all I have today, and I'm really glad that you came to listen, if you've stuck it out this long, and I hope to be talking to you soon. So stay healthy and happy knitting. Bye.